By 1459, Sultan Mehmed II, yes, the same Mehmed who knew Vlad as a child, sent his officials to Wallachia. Their mission was simple: demand the annual tribute, demand Vlad's loyalty, demand that he personally come to Constantinople to renew his oath. The envoys expected normal diplomacy, maybe negotiations, maybe pride, maybe tension. What they didn't expect was the most disturbing lesson in political messaging they would ever receive. When the Ottoman envoys entered Vlad's court, they refused to remove their turbans, a genuine religious custom. They explained the practice respectfully. Vlad nodded thoughtfully. Then he said, "If you honor your tradition so firmly, let me help you keep it forever." Before the envoys understood the meaning, Vlad's guards seized them and hammered their turbans directly into their skulls. Not to kill them, to send them back alive, a walking message, a scream-powered letter, a declaration of war carved into bone. When the Sultan saw the mutilated envoys return bleeding, half-conscious, turbans fused to their heads, he understood instantly. The boy he once knew was gone. Something far more dangerous had replaced him. War was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. Most people think impalement meant a stake through the torso. Quick, brutal, over, fast. They're wrong. Vlad's method wasn't just execution, it was engineering. Modern medical reconstructions and descriptions from Ottoman sources reveal the true method. The victim was laid face down. A long, rounded, oiled stake was inserted through the rectum. The stake was angled carefully, avoiding major organs. The victim was lifted upright. Gravity did the rest, slowly forcing the stake upward, sometimes taking hours, sometimes days. Some victims lived long enough for the stake to emerge near the shoulder or chest, still alive, still conscious, still suffering. Why design it this way? Because Vlad understood what modern psychologists now confirm. Witnessing prolonged suffering breaks people's minds far more effectively than witnessing quick death. On a battlefield, a fast death is horror, but a slow death is terror. And Vlad wanted terror. The executions weren't hidden. They were staged. Vlad placed impaled victims outside city gates, along major roads, at borders, near marketplaces, beside fortresses, anywhere. They would be seen by as many people as possible. And he didn't stop there. He organized the stakes by rank: peasants low, nobles high, commanders highest of Allah. Vertical hierarchy of suffering. Sometimes the stakes formed circles, spirals, stars, shapes visible from hills. A horrific demonstration. I have so much power, I can turn human misery into patterns. German pamphlets spread these stories across Europe. Woodcut illustrations showing Vlad eating meals among dying victims. Some of the details were propaganda, but the psychological reality was true. Vlad wanted the world to know that his cruelty was not random. It was structured. It was deliberate. It was a language. And soon, this language would be spoken directly to the Ottoman Empire. By early 1462, Vlad had crossed the Danube and launched brutal raids into Ottoman territory, burning towns, killing thousands, leaving behind messages carved in blood. Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople, finally lost patience. He assembled one of the largest armies Europe had ever seen, between 60,000 and 90,000 soldiers, more than enough to swallow Wallachia whole. Vlad had maybe 20,000 to 30,000 men, outnumbered 3 to 1, outmatched in weapons, hopeless in a traditional battle. So he refused to fight one. When the Ottomans entered Wallachia, they found nothing. Villages were abandoned, fields burned, whales poisoned, food destroyed, livestock moved into forests and mountains. Wallachia itself had become an enemy. The further the Ottomans marched, the weaker they grew. Their supply lines stretched thin. Nights became nightmares, because that's when Vlad attacked. Vlad unleashed small units, 50 to 100 men trained specifically for guerrilla warfare. Every night they struck, burning camps, killing settlers, releasing horses, destroying ammunition, ambushing stragglers, vanishing before dawn. They wore stolen Ottoman uniforms, spoke enough Turkish to confuse soldiers, appeared from the shadows and disappeared into the darkness. The goal wasn't to kill the army. The goal was to break its sanity, and it worked. The soldiers were exhausted, jumpy, terrified of every rustle in the dark. But Vlad wasn't done. He had prepared a masterpiece. This was Vlad's boldest move. Learned that the Sultan himself was camped near Talgovik with his elite Janissaris. So Vlad gathered nearly 10,000 men and led the assault personally, under the cover of night, like shadows wrapped in fire. They tore into the Ottoman camp, tents ignited, horses stampeded, blades flashed in pitch-black chaos. Screams filled the night. Their mission? Assassinate the Sultan. Ottoman accounts say Vlad got close, very close. Close enough that some claimed the two men saw each other across the burning camp, but the Janissaries held their defensive line. After hours of brutal combat, Vlad ordered a retreat. He melted into the darkness once more. Ottoman losses weren't huge, maybe 2,000 soldiers, but morale shattered. Their invincible army suddenly felt vulnerable. Their emperor had nearly died in the middle of his own camp. Fear began to rot them from the inside, and then they saw the reason Vlad had vanished for weeks before the invasion. They reached Talgovik, and they saw it. At first, they smelled it, the reek of death baking under the summer sun. Then they saw the stakes, not a few, not hundreds, but miles and miles of impaled bodies stretching toward the horizon. A forest built from human beings. Most historians estimate between 15,000 and 20,000 bodies, arranged in rows, in circles, in patterns visible from high ground. Some were weeks old, some days old, some still alive. One Byzantine chronicler wrote that the moans of the dying drifted across the entire field like wind. Seasoned Ottoman soldiers, men who had conquered cities, began vomiting. Some refused to march forward. Some deserted that very night. And there, at the center of the forest, on the highest stake of all, was Hamza Pasha, an Ottoman commander, displayed like a horrific monument, facing the path of the Sultan's approach. A final message: if this is what I do to your generals, imagine what I'll do to you. When Mehmed saw the forest, he stopped his horse and stared silently. Different sources record different words, but one version is repeated again and again. A man capable of such acts is impossible to defeat. The greatest military machine on earth turned around and retreated. Vlad didn't win through strength. He won through fear, weaponized on a scale the world had never seen. After the 1462 campaign, Vlad began impaling merchants accused of cheating, peasants who broke minor rules, nobles he suspected of disloyalty, entire villages when rumors spread. He didn't trust allies. He didn't trust friends. He didn't even trust silence. When a ruler begins to fear his own people, the story is already ending. His younger brother, Radu, supported by Ottoman gold and troops, positioned himself as a reasonable alternative. Hungarian support began slipping away. Vlad's violent rule made him too unpredictable, too dangerous, too uncontrollable. Within months of his greatest military victory, he was forced to flee his own kingdom. 12 years behind walls, Vlad ran to Hungary, expecting safety. Instead, King Matthias Corvinus had him arrested. Why? Historians still debate it. Some say Matthias forged letters claiming Vlad was conspiring with the Ottomans. Others argue Matthias simply wanted to avoid angering the Sultan. And some believe Vlad's cruelty made him politically toxic. Whatever the truth, Vlad spent the next 12 years in captivity, not torture, not chains. More like house arrest, comfortable rooms, noble treatment, even marriage to a Hungarian noblewoman. And yet, prison is prison. A cage doesn't have to be made of iron to break a man. But fate wasn't finished with him. By 1476, Wallachia had fallen into chaos under weak rulers. Stephen the Great of Moldavia and Hungarian nobles decided the region needed someone strong enough to restore order. They freed Vlad. They armed him. They put him back on the throne. For a moment, the fire returned. Vlad reclaimed his crown. Enemies fled. Supporters rallied. The shadow of the past began to stretch across Wallachia once more. But it didn't last. His second reign lasted barely 2 months. In late 1476 or early 1477 records are unclear. An Ottoman-backed force ambushed him near Bucharest. Some sources say he was abandoned by his own men. Some say he was killed by Ottoman soldiers. Some say his troops mistook him for an enemy in the chaos of battle. All we know for certain is Vlad died violently, just as violently as he had lived. His head was cut off, preserved in honey, and sent to the Sultan in Constantinople. A trophy, a message, a final insult to the man who once made an empire tremble. His body vanished. The tomb found in the 1930s was empty. A fitting end for a ghost that still haunts history. To Romanians, Vlad III is still often seen as a national hero, a brutal but courageous prince who protected his land from overwhelming enemies. Statues honor him. His name is tied to strength, pride, and independence. To the rest of the world. After Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1897, he became something else. A symbol of supernatural evil, a vampire legend, a creature of horror. But that version is a disguise, an easy mask we put on him, so we don't have to face the real horror, because the truth is far more disturbing. He wasn't a monster by birth. He wasn't a demon. He wasn't supernatural. He was a human being shaped by trauma, captivity, betrayal, and the lessons of power. Every stake, every execution, every calculated act of terror was something he learned, memorized, refined, and weaponized. Because fear worked. Because terror won. Because breaking minds was more effective than breaking armies. His story is not a horror tale. It's a mirror. Here is the entire story in one powerful conclusion. Vlad the Impaler was not born a villain. He was forged by being taken as a hostage at age 11, by watching the Ottoman Empire use fear as a weapon, by the murder of his family, and by years of humiliation and powerlessness. He learned that terror could control people more effectively than kindness or law. He applied this lesson so ruthlessly that even the mighty Ottoman Empire retreated from a forest of impaled soldiers stretching for miles. But terror has a price. It destroys enemies quickly and destroys its masters slowly. Vlad won battles no one expected him to win. He defeated an empire with fear alone. But in the end, he was consumed by the very weapon he perfected. His story teaches one chilling truth. Humanity produces monsters not by accident, but by design. And the monsters we create often reflect the systems we live in.